Welcome, guys, to another quick video. I just wanted to go over something that I think is really awesome about Dreamhack and what they're doing for their new format. So one thing I've always complained about Dreamhacks, or about any format really, where you have groups of 4 teams, is you're inevitably or usually going to get rematches in the lower bracket rounds, which is generally not fair. Last year we had, I believe it was Splice and Veritas, I believe. They rematched. Veritas won the first one, Splice won the second one. A similar thing happened with, I believe it was Ghost. I can't remember who they played, but they lost their first one, won the second one, and moved on. It's not really all that fair. Now, I get it for the promotion tournament. We have, for the RLCS, there is only 4 teams. So it makes sense that, that can happen. But when you have more than 4 teams at any point of any tournament, you really should make it basically an 8-team double elimination bracket with the same amount of teams advancing. So, to go over it real quick, last year, now we're going to use our mouse a decent amount here. Last year, we had a 4-team double elimination. And basically, it was, so in the first round, there was 32 teams, or there was 32 spots, but there wasn't that many teams. And you do double elimination with groups of 4. Now, for DreamHack setup, I believe 8 teams were playing at once anyway, or maybe even more than that. I'm not actually sure. I think there was actually more than that. So maybe even 16 total at first. I'm not positive of that. But either way, there was at least 8. So once again, if this is seeded correctly, you would have the 1 seed up here playing the 4 seed. 1 seed should beat the 4 seed and move on. Then you have the 2 seed versus the 3 seed. The 2 seed should win and move on. 1 seed should advance, and right here was your advancement game. So this was the advancement game between 1 and 2 seeds of that group. And the 1 seed would then move on there, as you can see. I should have mirrored my camera, so it seems like I'm looking at it. But whatever. Anyway, I always do that. I really need to mirror my camera. But then the pillow would not make sense. It would be all backwards. I don't know. It's tough. Anyway. So that's your 1 seed. They would advance. 2 seed would fall down here. The 3 and 4 seed would play in this game. The 3 and 4 seed would play. 3 seed moves on. Well, guess what we're at now again? The 2 versus the 3, which is supposed to be a close game. And if groups play out that way, that's where you get your rematches. And that happened a lot on DreamHack Day 1. And honestly, it's not fair for a multitude of reasons where everyone is seeded beforehand, but that doesn't mean that's exactly where they are in terms of skill. If you have one group where 3 teams are actually really good, well, 3 teams cannot move on. Only 2 can. Like we saw last year in the group of death, it was what I think it was G2 Dignitas was in that group, or Gale Force when they were called that. I believe the dudes in Guess Who, or maybe those guys were in some other group. But anyway, might have been Fnatic actually. Fnatic and Secret, I believe it was. But now, that group happened, obviously, a little bit because of, G2 fell early, so they claimed, instead of, the 1 seed or whatever seed they were, they claimed the 16 seed. So that makes a little sense. But for the first round, you can't really tell that anyway. So in cases with 4 teams where 3 teams are really good, only 2 can advance no matter what. And then, of course, the other reason is they're going to play again, and if things go poorly, like, say, in this first round, the 2 seed wins 3 games to 2. And then the 2 seed wins 3-0. Then the 3 seed wins this series 3-2. Well, technically, the 2 seed still won more games. They won games 5-3, but the 3 seed is moving on just because they won them at the appropriate time. Also, going into this, there's momentum issues, which you can't really help no matter what bracket you do for this, but obviously the 2 seed losing to the 1 seed, they lose some momentum. They do get probably better practice, in my opinion, but they lose some momentum coming down while the 3 seed just won against an easier opponent, and they have some momentum coming in. So generally, a lot of the times, now this is depends who you talk to, would say it's actually better to lose this game if you're going to get a rematch later. Now, of course, you have to make it that far, but, it could be better that way. Again, you don't want to do that because you want to, obviously have the 1 seed coming out of the group for your better seeding for the next day. But besides all that, I wasn't a big fan of this, just mostly because of the rematches. It just wasn't all that great. And because the chance that we were missing out where, oh man, this group seemed like there was 3 solid teams, while the other group seemed like there was only 1. And that can possibly happen. So in this instance, that's what happened in the old format. Now, in the new format, it is 8-team groups. But basically, if you think about it, it's basically 2 4-team groups. So take this upper bracket, you pop it in here, and then take it again, just copy and paste, Oh, like, and you put it there. So that's how that works. The same exact format rules apply, where once you get to this round in the old format, that's a qualifier match. It's the same thing here. So you're still going to qualify when you win 2 games, and you'll still win your group to an extent. There'll be 2 winners of each group now. That's the only thing that can get a little confusing. So say there's a 1 and a 2 seed in this. The 2 seed can't acquire the 1 seed no matter what, because they only have the 2 seed side of their group, and the 1 seed can't get to the 2 seed. They can get the 1 seed or worse, obviously. So there is a little bit of that, but that's basically just because it's still basically just 2 of these groups together. Now the main difference is when you lose, you go down and you play your same opponent. So these 2 matches, like whoever loses, they'll still play each other. So this round stays exactly the same. So that's just copy and paste from here. So those 2 are exactly the same. The reason why this is different is because the losers of the qualifier game, so this one, so these guys right here, so the losers of those games, they flip. So now they're going to play, so the loser of this game is now going to play the 2 losers of this side, so whoever wins that matchup. And so they'll move down to this side of the bracket, so they kind of flip to the top, and they will play these guys who just lost on the top side. Now, the reason why this is good is because you cannot have a rematch no matter what. You can't have a rematch on the same day. Now, obviously, you can still rematch on day 2 from day 1. It depends on the seeds. I haven't looked into it too completely yet, but we'll get to the seeds in a little bit. So you could rematch possibly on day 2 just because, again, now there's going to be 8 teams, and there's possibilities with teams losing early and then flipping and all that you could rematch from day 1 to day 2, but you won't get the same rematch in the same exact day. And the seeds work out where you, barring any upsets, like you shouldn't rematch on day 2 either. But it can happen, obviously. And then day 3, obviously, there can be rematches. We saw that last year when it was G2 versus the old Dignitas, the team from NA, the rival series. Of course, the wife starts texting me. Of course, it's going to ruin my video. Anyway, I shouldn't even have desktop audio on because we're not even playing anything. Boom, I'm going to mute it. There it is. Okay. So what this does is basically no rematches in these rounds. And again, these will be qualifier games. So those are qualifier. Oh, I'm sorry. My mouse is on the wrong screen. So these will be qualifier games right here and right here. So we won't play any of this bracket. So it looks a lot longer, obviously. But it's basically just 2 of these. 2 of these where instead you swap out that team for the team from the other group. That's really the only difference here. So there's really no downsides to this. There's only some advantages where you get to not have rematches, and the possibility that if there is 3 teams in a certain section of a bracket that are stacked, they have the chance to all advance if they're that good. So there is that possibility there. Now, the way the seeds are going to work, so it's a little different. It's very similar to last year. Now, I don't know exactly how it pans out precisely, but you won't get groups that make sense normally where it's like, all right, so if there's a group of 4, and again, we're going to do this in groups of 4 just because it's easier to talk about. So say you have the 1 seed. Normally, it would be the 1 seed, it would be the 16 seed, and then it would be the 8 and 9 seed, right? So that's how a normal group of 4 would work out if it was perfectly balanced. But that's not what's going to happen here, because in the grand scheme of things, you want the 1 seed to play the 8 seed on day 3, if that makes sense. Now, again, they're trying to avoid rematches every single day. So the most important part is day 3. So after these groups, like I should kind of go over that too. So new format, it's 8-team double elimination groups, which means there's 4 of these on day number 1. That reduces the teams by half. So we'll go from 32 to 16. So then there'll be 2 of these on day number 2. And then we'll reduce from 16 to 8 teams, and then you will be seeded into the bracket based on that, which is single elimination. So it's really important in a single elimination bracket that you try and make it as perfect seeds as possible. So you want 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. Obviously, 2 versus 7 comes down, 4 versus 5 goes up there. So you want that because you want it to be based on the seeds. If everything plays out perfectly, which it never will, but if everything plays out perfectly, then the team that you think is the best is going to play the worst remaining team at that 8th seed. Now, things get hairy on day 1 and day 2 because you don't want them to play every single day, so you don't have perfect groups on those days. So instead of doing a 1, 8, 9, 16, you do like a 1, 7, 10, 15 or something like that. So you kind of change it up just slightly for games that you won't necessarily get on day number 3 or even day number 2. So day 1 we'll have a certain groups with certain seeds, and then those teams will advance out. And you can probably just do those again because those seeds will now be different. So once again, like with the 4-team part, say you have a group of, so say right here we have 1, 7, 10, and 16, which would be 1 and 16 here, 7 versus 10 here. Basically, that means coming out of this group, out of this 4-team group, you have the seed 1 and seed 7 coming out. That'll advance to the next day. Now, you won't have on day number 2 this exact group where it's 1, 16, 7, 10, because obviously 1 and 7 would then play each other or whatever. So, actually, it would probably be 1, 15, or 1, 31, 15, and 17. So you could do that as long as they're not in the same group or barring upsets. So 1 and 15 come out of this group, we'll say, because there's 32 teams. This might get a little confusing. I'm sorry, but if you're following along, God bless you. Anyway, so say you did do the same exact groups on day number 2. It would be 1, 7, 10, and 15. So now the 1 and 15 are down here. They shouldn't play each other anyway. No, never mind. I'm lying. It would be 1 and 15 would play here. So that would change that bracket. So instead it would probably be like 1, 14, 6, and 11. So that's how they would do it for day number 2. So that's how those seeds would work. So you don't want to have any rematches. But going back to my previous point, we're going to talk about this again. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little confusing here. Say this group is 1, 15, 7, 10, just for the sake of it. 1 advances through. So if they advance through perfectly, they will keep their seed. So last year, we saw when Dignitas and G2 played. G2 was like, I believe, the 3 seed or something like that. They lost to Dignitas. Dignitas won that group. So Dignitas acquires that 3 seed and now has the 3 seed side of the bracket, while G2, whatever seed Dignitas was, say 14, then they start playing from the 14 seed side. So that's why they went into the group of death on day number 2. So the 1 seed is trying to save their seed, basically. And then the second highest seed in this group of 4 would then be the one where when it rotates. So you see over here, like, they would be playing up here, but the loser here would be that 7 seed in a perfect world. They would rotate down to the bottom. So they would be down here. So the 7 seed would come out on this side of the bracket, while whatever seeds are playing over here, they would play out differently there. So what this means is teams like, you could get some pretty big games early on when you have 8-team double elimination, because if there's upsets that happen, it actually makes it worse for teams. So say you get upset in the first round. Instead of the 4-team one, you're like, whatever. I'm just going to wind up playing one of these other 4 guys that aren't seeded that well. But say like the 1 seed loses here. They'll probably have like the 4 seed with them on the other side of the bracket. If there's 4 groups of these, they'll probably have the 8 seed, actually. So it would be the 8 seed. But say the 1 seed loses in the first round. Well, they're going to play the loser of the upper final, basically, from the other group, which could be that 8 seed, which could be very interesting to have an 8 versus a 1 seed. 2 teams that should make day 3 could meet on day 1. It was impossible before with the 4-team setup to have that happen. But now it's possible, like if there's early upsets, that 1 seed doesn't get to coast through that easy bracket anyway. They'll have to move down to face a different opponent that could possibly be the best seed from that group as well, barring upsets. So if there is upsets happening, then that could happen. So it could be very interesting to see how this all plays out. This was probably extremely confusing, but I'm really excited because this format, it's a very small change, but honestly, there's only pros to this. There's really no cons. I guess the only con, like if you think about it, would be like the 1 versus 8 seed on day number 1. But that's because they lost to really bad teams. Like if the 1 seed loses, they lost to the worst team in the entire bracket. So that shouldn't happen. But it's possible. So, because we're going to have probably a stacked Dreamhack Leipzig. So that should be a lot of fun to watch. I'm excited for this new format. I think it'll be really cool. No rematches and just better overall chance for teams to make it out. There won't be a group of death where there's 4 teams stacked in one group that all look really good, and 3 can at least make it out. And there's really no excuse otherwise. Like, if you are the 4th best in that group, there's probably other better teams that made day 3 anyway. So you really don't have to worry about that. But that's it for me. I'm really excited for the DreamHack Pro Circuit. The other things about the DreamHack Pro Circuit, I don't really know, and they're really unclear of what's going to happen. With, like, what is this Pro Circuit? Is it just 4 tournaments, just for the hell of it, which is awesome, but, like, is there a point system, and is there a winner at the end of this for the DreamHack Pro Circuit for just funsies or something? Or how do the invites work for other DreamHacks? Are you going to take the top 4 from, like, RLCS when DreamHack Dallas comes around, or are you going to take the top 4 from this tournament for Leipzig? Because I think, honestly, if it was me, for the DreamHack Pro Circuit, I would take whoever comes in the semifinals. Those 4 teams, they get invited. Now, they might have to worry about regional stuff where there would be less qualifier spots open. But honestly, like, here's what I would do. You take your top 4, no matter what region they come from, Europe, NA, whatever, or even OCE, because there's going to be a couple of those teams coming over, which is really, really exciting. But you take those top 4 teams, no matter what, and you still have 2 qualifier spots, no matter what, for NA and for Europe. So that could mean, like, if it's a whole European semifinal, that we get 6 European teams invited next time, and we only get 2 from North America. Perfectly fine with me, because those 4 deserve it, but I still want to give 2 qualifier spots open to each side to try and make their run or try and get invited. So that's one thing I would do for this Pro Circuit. Like, it should be tied in only to themselves. At this point, I don't want it to be the top 4 from RLCS at that point, or the top 2 from each one, because then what's the point of the DreamHack Pro Circuit? You know, that's kind of the whole point of it. Like, I want DreamHack to kind of take their tournaments separately, and like, if you're a top performing team in DreamHack, you get the invite. So that's what I hope happens there. The other thing I was really hoping for was, like, a point system, and it doesn't really have to go into anything, because obviously there's no, like, oh, you're going to make the World Championship based on points from DreamHack Pro Circuit. Like that's not going to happen for this year, at least. Hopefully, like, eventually we have stuff like that. But for this year, I would love a point system, like, first place gets 5,000 points, and second gets 3,500, third gets 3,000, yada, yada, down the line, all the way through probably top 16, I would do, or something like that. And so you get points, and whoever gets the most points at the end, or maybe like top 4 in points from all 4 of these DreamHack events, they get paid out extra money. So there's going to be $100,000 for each of these tournaments. So obviously you want to place well there. The other thing I would love to see is them have like $25K kind of separately, where like $15K goes to first, second gets $5K, third gets, you know, whatever, like to equal out to $25K. Third gets $2,500, fourth gets $2,500 too, whatever. That would be really cool, because then it would give an incentive to try and go to all 4 for these orgs. And also it would be something that you could follow along throughout the year that's separate from the RLCS, but would still kind of be fun. Like, oh man, like G2 right now, they're sitting in 6th in points. They're going into the last DreamHack event. They just won RLCS Season 8 Worlds, and they're trying to make their way up the DreamHack points leaderboard. They're the favorites, and if they win, they could surpass Dignitas for like top 2 in points. Be really cool. And it'd be cool to just award a winner for a complete calendar year of work through DreamHacks. I think that'd be really neat. But let me know what you guys think about the new and old format. Let me know on a scale of 1 to 10 how confusing this was, because I confused myself a little bit in there. I apologize. And yeah, so let me know about the new format, and let me know what you think should be done to make DreamHack Pro Circuit an actual like circuit for this year, or even in future years. But that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for the support recently. It seems like everyone's really enjoying getting back into the swing of things with RLCS and roster moves, and I'm trying to do some more conversation pieces on that. So I appreciate all the views and all the comments, and we'll try and do some more podcasts along the way. I think we're going to have one actually today with Leaf that should be up before this video. We're doing a YouTube Inception thing, because this should come out Friday. That should come out Wednesday, but today's Tuesday. It's wild. None of this is live. Who cares what we do here on YouTube? No one watches anyway. Goodbye.